What's going on YouTube? Earth Power here with CVH.
How's it going, everybody?
We have a fun video for you guys today. We are going to do a set breakdown of sets of TCG sets 1 through 12. So base set all the way through Thrash of the Mega Hybrid creatures. And we're going to rank them in these tiers that I mirrored. Sorry about that you see next to us here. So
Yeah,
S rank through D rank, we're going to go set by set and just kind of give you our synopsis on what we think, why we think they go there, and just hopefully inherit a bunch of discussion. Whether you agree or disagree, we'd love to hear from you. And yeah, we think this will incite quite a bit of debate, and that's what I'm looking for. So
me too. That's what we always want to encourage debate, discourse.
yeah,
Get as aggressive as you want in the comments about our choices. But no, it should
absolutely.
should be a good time.
Yeah, no, we are the foremost authorities on all matters. So,
Yeah,
we'll tell you where these things rank and whether you agree or disagree, where we ranked them.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Make your
get ready,
own.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, strap in.
Yep. Every
All right, and
single
I guess
set released in English. And where else should we
yeah,
start but at the beginning? We're going to do these chronologically in the order they released in the United States. And I don't even know how sets released in other countries, but we are starting out with the one, the only DMO1 base set where it all began.
yeah, the OG. I don't know. I that this that I mean, where else do you begin other than the beginning, right?
Hmm.
So, base set gave us so many staples. Um, and by staples, I mean just cards that were generally good and still are today. Um, Terror Pit, Holy All, Spiral Gate, um, Natural Snare for those who needed a trigger in nature, even though that card's kind of fallen off the map a little bit. Um, and it introduced cards that have stood the test of time, and even saw bans and limits in the OCG, even and up until even still today. For a game that started back in, I guess it was 2004 for us. It would have been 2003 in Japan, I believe, or 2002 in Japan, I believe.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's some of these cards are still existing in their meta today. I think even up until recently, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's going to be a lot of I'm wrongs in this, so please put them in the comments below. But I believe even cards like Aquahulkus just even recently came off of their banned and limited list, and now you can play a full set of them again. So
Yeah. I mean, granted,
just
we are rating
really
these in terms of the English meta that we know. Just so you all are aware. If
right,
there are
right,
cards that we don't mention that are like OP all of a sudden in the OCG, we would have no idea. So there's
yeah,
that. Um,
absolutely. Yeah,
One interesting
Christian's
thing
cycling through a
about,
lot of them here. Yeah,
yeah, just the cards that you're mentioning, trying to go in order. One thing that we skipped over that's a little interesting for the base set is that a lot of the super rares, the chase cards, are actually quite awful. They're basically just double breakers with like a random effect slapped onto them, with some notable exceptions. I mean, when Scarlet Sky Terrier is the most playable of your 10 super rares, you kind of have a problem. But the problem doesn't extend to the rest of the expansion. You know, it really did give us the staples that define a lot of strategies. This set did a great job of showing players early on what the different civilizations were going to be good at and bad at. There's a huge disparity of card quality here. I mean, partially because of learning tools and partially because I think the design team was still getting its, legs under it. So you have cards that are just like worse than you could possibly ever imagine, and like a lot of it is teaching people what's good and bad, but also like cards like Holy Awe are incredible. Cards like Chaos Strike and Auro's Blast are really really bad, but the good cards in this expansion are so meta defining, and actually beyond that they're just sort of like game defining. You always account for the Holy Awe's, the Terror Pits, Hulkus, Crystal Memory, Spiral Gate, even some cool slept on cards like Unicorn Fish that saw a resurgence, cards like Deadly Fighter
talking to
defining the
you,
Rush
friend.
archetype. Yeah. Hey, it took us until
I
Kaijiro to realize it was good.
I think the cool thing about base set and just as we progress through the sets in this video, base set, like CVH said, did a really cool thing in just making this a very teachable game without really overdoing it in the base set. You get a ton of vanillas, which is perfectly fine, power attacking cards, things like that. You'll notice a lot of the super rares, like Astro Comet Dragon, Roaring Great Horn, like they all have these power attacking mechanics that, back in the day it was just you were playing chess but with a couple of pieces. You still had your staples like Bronze Arm Tribe, all of the mana ramp stuff, but nothing was ever crazy. You weren't doing any wild effects. You weren't upheavaling your opponent's hand yet. And it made it fun. And even still, the staples still did what they did. They were still good. But the finishers, if you will, the cards that define decks didn't really come until the set following this. Get into that one shortly, but I mean, as far as base set is concerned, it did an excellent job of not overloading, I think, what Duel Masters was trying to be. It introduced the game perfectly, in my opinion. And
Mm-hmm.
like CVH said, you still get a ton of staples, a ton of stock cards out of the set that, whether I mean, they're not chase cards. It's not like anybody's still buying packs today. And if they are, they're doing it purely just for collector's sake, like me. But,
Yeah, you're doing it.
you know, right. At the end of the day, getting the commons and stuff, that's what you're after. You want the Hulkus, you want the Holy All, and this set did a good job of introducing enough of those cards to make this set just really worthwhile. And
Right
why
out.
I think CVH, yeah, no,
Oh,
for
I
sure.
was just gonna say, right out the gate, the artists were just fucking smashing it. I don't even, whatever. We're far enough along in the video. The YouTube won't demonetize you. The art is just really fucking good, everybody. Okay, like in Duel Masters,
Yeah,
we gotta show respect to the artists. It's solid stuff. Even like the
yeah.
2D kind of stuff. Oh my god, the super rares in this set might not be super playable, but they look fantastic.
And that's right, and that's what I'm saying. Like anybody who even doesn't really play this game, or like someone like you who I think played it more from just a player standpoint, wasn't ever really a collector like I was. Could just appreciate like just having a handful of these cards in any given deck box, just to
Hmm.
shuffle them around and show them to people. Like it did an excellent job of, I think, just getting people into the game, if not just for that alone.
Yeah. So base
So,
set,
but yeah, I
where are we ranking it? I think
think
for
you and I are.
everything it brings to the table, all the staples, I think it has to be the first in the S tier. It just does too much. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a mistake not to give it just the S tier treatment. CVH and I. So to give you a little bit of prelim as we continue on down this line, we spent probably 2 or 3 hours a few weeks ago just kind of going through these sets set by set, trying to figure out exactly where we wanted to rank them, which is why we came up with the 5 set lists here. So something is going to end up in at least every one of them, and I think we did a good job of spreading it out. But yeah, it's don't think that we're just going to be heavy handed with this S tier here, but
No.
base set definitely deserves it.
Yeah. Well, there's just too many high profile cards that are in so many decks, and the competitive meta is still so many years later. But moving right along,
Yeah,
you briefly mentioned it talking about the base set, but we're on DM02. And this is when we start getting into the wild names that we're gonna say all
yeah.
of. Evo Crushionators of Doom.
DMO2 introduced evolution creatures, as well as a few new races, and probably some other stuff that I'm forgetting here. But Christian has the Wikipedia. Shout outs to Yami Michael. Did a excellent job of maintaining this wiki over the years, and even as Duel Masters continued in the OCG. But I don't think we give him enough credit, or maybe we do. I think everybody does at this point. But
Mm-hmm.
never hurts to continue to shout him out. He's done an amazing job with this wiki, and we appreciate it. But yes, DMO2 introduced evolution creatures and gave us some new boss creatures and cool effects that really shook the game up without without again going too overboard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously we can already see the super rares. There's only 5 in this expansion. Most expansions are this size, of 60 cards plus the it's just 60
55
and
cards
yeah.
plus 5 supers, yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
60
60
total.
total. But yeah, Fighter, Dual Fang, Crystal Paladin are still playable today. Valdios was sort of a centerpiece of the Mono Fire Rush and like the Fire Dark Rushes that appeared back in the day before Ganta
Yeah.
and Hardy Cap'n were cards, which were like the quote unquote optimal ways to play Rush, I suppose. I don't know. I came into the game later. But
Yeah,
this deck,
humans were very relevant early. Base set had a lot of human cards.
yeah, this really. started to pave the way for the mono water deck that was really popular too with the Lancers. Kirill is just amazing. I'm not even going to discuss Scissor Eye. I'm just going to pretend that's not in the thing. Darkness gets some fun. Lost Soul, hugely meta defining card. Burst Shot. Again, we're seeing a lot of playable, maybe less in terms of staples, but a lot of playable cards that you see in a lot of competitive decks today. And obviously, now that we're looking back on this with a fresh set of eyes, we have to give a nod to Fortress Shell being introduced in this deck,
Yeah.
or in this set rather.
I mean, we got at least 2 to 5 relevant cards out of every one of these civilizations, and even at the time when this set came out, I mean, a lot more of these were very relevant. Cards like Bolzar Dragon, even those the super rare out of Fire, was very strong early, and mana burn was not not OP, if you will, but this card got in the way of a lot of strategies as your finishers back then were coming down on turns 7 and 8, and mana ramp strategies outside of nature weren't really doing too much. We didn't have chargers and things like that, so this set introduced. I mean, the big thing obviously being Evos. Larva Gear, I think, is the main one that comes out of the set. Bark Whip,
Mm-hmm.
Fighter Dual Fang for the nature decks, which still see some play today. Fighter Dual Fang being your answer to Alzonius. Get to much later in this video. This set just, and again, just for the sake of it, introducing evolutions, I think is what gets it ranked pretty high on our list here coming.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, the rest of the stable, Lost Soul, Burst Shot. I mean, it just the set
yeah,
just kept providing.
you have cards like Kirill, Magris, Foul, Logic Cube that are seen in a lot of decks today, and you also have cards like Diamond Cutter and Crystal Paladin and Valdios, which were defining for the set 2 meta at the time, which isn't really like showing the deck strengths as a whole, but like it has enough cards that still see a ton of play today. Like this is
Yeah,
definitely one of the best sets, I think.
yeah, yeah. Wide removal wasn't really a thing when Evo came out. You had Burst Shot, obviously, but Diamond Cutter was strong back then. You just
Hmm.
lay out a bunch of blockers, your opponent can't really do anything to it. And I remember one of our local friends, and he was featured on the channel way back when. James, uh, how I was introduced to Duel Masters was he played a King Depcon mono water deck with a bunch of unblockables. So this deck's impossible to beat. I can't. If he attacks, I can't do anything about it.
It's
So
crazy that he'd play that instead of Crystal Lancer. But overall,
what are
where
you
are we
gonna do?
putting this? Where are we putting this bad boy?
That is a good question because I don't have it pulled up anymore. I didn't save
Where
it
would
on a
you?
list.
What's your gut? I'll tell
If
you what we
if I
picked
had to,
later.
my gut was gonna be A tier. I
Okay,
think I think we put it in A tier.
that's what we did. Yeah, A
Yeah,
tier for the Olivo.
it's
See, we
just
were right.
there's I mean there's so many good cards in this set that like CVH said. I just and that's I think how we're ranking this is just relevant cards today. Um, and Evo just gives and gives and gives, and we wouldn't have had our finals in season 1 if it wasn't for Evo Crushionators.
Yeah, great expansion for sure. Moving on, DM03, Rampage of the Super Warriors.
Starts to get a little dry here, guys.
Are we getting a little dry?
Starting to the well runs, what is it, well runs thin. I don't know, there's a euphemism here that I'm failing to get across, but
Wells
yeah,
run dry. That's
rampage of
bad
the
if the well is dry. There's no
wells
water.
run dry. Yes. That's it.
Yeah.
Rampage of the Super Warriors. Very little rampage, only one or two relevant Super Warriors. The set did not give us a ton that really changed things up. I think this was Duel Master's way of saying, "Hey, let's expand on this Evo trend that we've got going on." Evo Crushionators was a super strong release. It's where a lot of players started getting into the game, and this set tried to expand on that, and it just gave us a ton of hot garbage,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
At
You got
least
some
looking back on
relevance.
it, Earth Stomp Giant's playable. I thought all the supers were
Yeah,
terrible, but
yeah.
one of them is actually okay.
Yeah, the chase card and Earth Stomp Giant was cool. Garcacco Dragon was neat. I remember enjoying that card back in the day. You could try to chain a few of those together, do some cool stuff, but he didn't really get relevant until Stompatrons. So again, we'll get to that a little later. But yeah, the light section super
Unplayable.
unimpressive.
Unplayables
Yeah,
all the way
um,
through.
yeah,
Water at
we
least
got
has Emerald.
cards. Yeah, yeah, it's Gotta love when your chase cards at common
Yeah.
for it. But I think outside of that, I mean, it's you can keep scrolling because I think the rest of it's not
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I'm trying to
This set
find.
really really helped drafting. Really helped the cube, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, cards.
Yeah. I mean, Angler
We got
Cluster was fun for me. I played a lot of Mono Water back in the day, but it's not a
yeah,
competitive archetype now.
yeah. These cards became very not relevant after sets 4 and 5 dropped. Um, got Syrian Wave though. That's a fun one.
Yeah, Searing Wave is great. Volcanic Arrows is good. Emerald is great. Sniper Mosquito is very narrowly great. Mana Nexus is the worst card in the game. Just kidding. It's definitely not the worst card even in this set by a long
But
shot.
when Mana Nexus is the fifth best card that you want to
Yeah.
see out of the set, you might have done something wrong.
I will say Earth Stomp
Uh,
is good. But yeah, I mean back in the day we didn't realize it was good. But like I was telling you, like
yeah,
there's like 4 or 5 cards that are between common and like uncommon, I think, that are great. And then like boy, that really doesn't inspire you to buy a lot of a lot of packs of a set.
right. And that's you looking back at it, like all of these cards, like even like I mean, obviously Emerald's good, but again, you look at these cards and you see them as narrow.
Hmm.
Emerald finds its way into some tempo based strategies that might need to put down shield triggers, sees itself in control, and that's that being the least narrow card in the set,
Yeah.
the only playable one. All of the other cards are only used in certain strategies, but are typically there as a flex spot.
Yeah, that's
So
based on the current meta, which is what we're judging. Obviously, like for the
yeah,
time, Emerald was insane because it opened up like Awe Splashes and it opened up Illusionary Merfolk as like a playable line that you could take, which dominated the meta for a fair bit in like Water Dark nature controls and Water nature tempos and Water Dark and stuff. So Emerald was
right,
great. Emerald is now relegated to like pretty good.
right. But when that's one card out of 60, can that
Yeah,
really carry the set?
and it's a common.
CVH, where does this one land for us?
I would have to say, did you did Carl disappear? No, you're back.
I'm right
That
here.
was strange. Nice. Uh,
Oh,
hold
there
on.
I go again. Hello.
Oh, there we go. I know what I did wrong, and I won't do it again. I'm sorry, YouTube. Forgive the technical difficulties. Rampage, as we discussed, pretty bad. I mean, it's hard to imagine less than like 5 playables in a set. So for all of those reasons, while we love Earthstomp Giant and Emerald and Searing Wave, we put Rampage as an expansion overall into the D tier.
Blah, 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 blah.
Sorry, Rampage. But hey,
Rest
at
in
least we
peace.
get to move along to DMO4.
Yeah, best part about that set review is we get to the next one.
Yeah.
So
DMO4 Shadow Clash of Blinding Night.
I always used to mix this up. I would always say Shadow Clash of Blinding Light because that just made sense.
Yeah, but this is
Blinding Night,
it's a Shadow Clash. It's Blinding Night. It's bright and it's dark, and this set has a lot of weird stuff with light and darkness creatures that we're about to get into
yeah,
on the wiki.
yeah. So a little bit of history of this set. It introduced a playable tin, or not a playable tin, but instead of like a two-player structure, we got a tin that came with key cards.
Oh
We got
yeah.
Mysterios and Mongrel Man, which is pretty cool. This was the first and only set, to my knowledge, the only set in the TCG for sure, but I don't know that the OCG really did anything like this ever again. But we got a lot more light and darkness creatures in this set than we did the other three civilizations. They really leaned into the lore of Duel Masters with this set, the war between the light and darkness realms. We were introduced to Alcidius, the leader of the Light Clan, and Balaam, the leader of the Darkness Realm.
It's very weird to me. I didn't even mention this when we first talked about this set. It's weird they made Balaam a super and Alcidius a very like for flavor and like consistency. I feel like they should switch that with Remuel. This would be a fine, very rare because it is horrible.
Yeah,
And that
yeah. Hey, man, I'm for it. Made getting a playset Alcidius a lot easier way back then.
it's
So,
true. I want that
not that
full art. I want that frame break that you get with the super rares though. That'd be nice.
I
Looks so good.
remember when this set came out, we wanted to make Alcidius good. Like it was like, oh my god, this card makes Terra Pit irrelevant.
Hmm.
Like it was so defining, and then it was just not good. Like it was so hard to get Apodius out with Kirill and just the fact that it's the only bait you could play before you could play Alcadius was that Eris there that you just scrolled over. Just made that
Yeah.
deck very hard to play early on. But
Yeah, we
we
hadn't
got
even
relevant
gotten
Alcadius
Innocent
decks now.
Hunter. Yeah, no Innocent Hunter,
Yeah,
no Ulurus. That's rough.
yeah,
Mystrios is a card that stood the test of time. This really pushed the Diamond Cutter decks of the era over the top. And obviously we played it in some decks back then, and anyone who plays modern era English format sets 1 through 12 knows that Mystrios is one of the best cards in the game. It's one of a very small list of cards that anyone ever considers limiting. So there's a reason for that, because it's really, really, really strong.
yeah.
And you get a
And
couple
again,
other cards
wholly
that are strong too.
unslept on here in the channel.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, we got
Marinomancer,
our one
Hydro
drop for the
Hurricane.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah.
I another slept on deck in this meta. But yeah, Aquaguard giving us one drop, relevant one drops for the evolutions like Paladin and Crystal Lancer gave that deck new breath, which was super cool. Our this set introduced shield trigger creatures, so
Oh yeah.
cards like Locomotive or Kalan the Oracle, and then my boy Orcon.
Your boy Torcon the Great. Without
Love
Shadow
him.
Clash of Blinding Night, Torcon the Great wouldn't even exist. So obviously
Yeah,
we have to appreciate this set for what it is. Yeah, a lot of cool cards, you know. Like despite Torcon, I'll say like Nature and Fire are a little weak. But that's kind of the idea of the expansion, right? It really focused on light and darkness, which is why there are more cards in those civilizations. Which is kind of a weird thing that doesn't happen in other expansions, is they're really focusing on two in particular. And the support cards that Water released are fantastic. You know, Marino, I think, is still a pretty good card, even though maybe it fell off in Modern
absolutely.
Era. Hydro Hurricane, you know, it was really popular like when it released, I think. And then like we sort of came to the wrong conclusion that it wasn't very good. And, you know, again, Modern Era DM proves us wrong. Hydro Hurricane's a great card. Probably an A tier deck or a B tier deck at worst. And yeah, this set really laid the groundwork for it and gave it a lot of cool
Yeah.
tools.
Yet again, though, another set that really underwhelming super and very rares. Obviously, we got Alcadius. Balam is a chase card, if not just for collectors. Cards like Gawk Life and Nofia are neat, but very niche. Um, still some relevant supers for sure, but the weight of the set is carried by the really good light and darkness creatures that it introduced, staples for a lot of control and mid range decks, and Kamikaze Chainsaw Warrior,
Yeah, it's
everybody's
good.
favorite little guy in Phantomac.
Yeah, it's a premonition. The meta is going to be Phantomac all along. Yeah, really, really solid set. I would say nothing too crazy. I mean, Hydro Hurricane and Mystrios are the standouts for me. Alcadius too, obviously. Like that deck is actually quite good. Overall, I would say this is just like solid, like, good set, and I would put it B tier.
Yeah, that B tier is definitely where this belongs. Yeah, it's very middle of the road. Did a lot of things right. Didn't do anything too great. Obviously, gave us Mystrios and a handful of other big hitters. But again, you don't go to bed thinking I want packs of this set versus some of the others that we'll get to here shortly.
Yeah, but still, like if they release expansions like this, a power level all the time, no one's really complaining. It's solid,
Exactly. Exactly.
solid set. And now we are moving on to must be your favorite because you love this archetype. Survivors. As soon as I find the picture, survivors of the Megapocalypse.
Survivors is cool, man. What a neat concept for this game that just never really panned out. Um, yeah, we I don't know. It was cool. Like the idea of a snowballing effect uh that can get bigger and better and stronger, and it's neat, but it's underwhelming, I guess, to say the least. Survivors really leaned more into the lore of Duel Masters. I think that's what a lot of these early sets started to focus on. Obviously, Shadow Clash was the war between the light and darkness realms, and then Survivors, in name and tale, these are the survivors of that war. And it just kind of played into that and tried to play into this archetype of making all of the survivors work together to get cool effects. And we got some neat cards out of here. This set introduced fast speed attackers. Haha,
Yeah.
got it. Almost screwed it up.
Yeah, it's literally
Which
in
is
front of
great.
you. Let's just read the word.
I can see. I can read, guys. Uh, but yeah, we got speed attackers, twin cannon, sky tear, Rickabilly dismantler, still very relevant cards in Russian tempo today. Everybody's favorite Aqua Surfer.
So good.
Divine Riptide. I really wanted to make that card good, but unfortunately, it just falls into the depths of just a card. Um, but yeah, I mean, outside of the 3 or 4 cards I just mentioned here, it's hard to find other really relevant cards that don't just see additions in decks more as tech. You just scrolled over cards like Brutal
Oh yeah.
Charge, Ruthless Sky Tear used to be a fun tech when water decks were still running rampant way back when.
Jewel
Um,
Spider is up there for the Water Dark aggro
yeah,
decks, but again, it's sort of what
yeah,
you said about what was it? Kamikaze. No, one of the cards earlier in the Rampage, I think. Like if Jewel Spider is one of your top half a dozen cards or something, then the set's power level isn't quite too high. And the problem is like
right.
twofold. Like they dedicated a lot of spots to the survivors. There's a lot of vanillas, which it feels weird for this far into like the game's development just to have like big beefy things that don't do a lot, like Leguile. I don't
Yeah.
know. I guess.
Well, this set introduced Triple Breaker as well, and I think Duel Masters was still trying to figure out how relevant they wanted to make the cards. So all the cards that they made Triple Breaker, they made them cost 1 million and gave them just meh effects. And so it just made, again, all the chase cards in here, while neat, Billion Degree Dragon's a cool card to pull out of a pack. You're never gonna put it in a deck. you
Yeah,
know
and I wonder
how
if that was a
relevant.
conscious decision or not, because obviously in Kaijudo they decided to make cards like this. Like this wouldn't be Billion Degree Dragon. This would be Infernus the Awakened, you know. You can make
Right.
powerful, huge things that cost 10, 9, 12. Like the idea of these costing what they cost and only being playable off of like Transmogrify is just it's just not it. You know, it's not going to make them good. I wonder if the idea was just to make them cool and deliberately not make them good, or if they just weren't really thinking about the competitive meta and they were like, we don't, we're just some of the shiny cards can just be cool and flavorful. Because I don't think anyone who, if there was anyone testing this game, no one's putting these into deck and being like, oh yeah, these are good. Like it just wouldn't have
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah, they made a handful of relevant survivors and said, "Yeah, this is a deck.
Yeah.
People will do it.
I
Just what
mean,
what are our other ideas? Throw them in there. Let's get this done."
and that's the thing too. Like the Survivor engine is good, but like the cards that make survivors good aren't in the expansion.
Right, right. We get the next set, which
Yeah,
is super dumb. Yeah.
yeah. So
But yeah,
yeah.
this 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 set for lack of a better way of making it seem nice is the bottom of our D tier. It just unfortunately it's hard to like similar to Rampage, your top 3 to 5 cards like Divine Riptide and Crowwinger are probably vying for spots at at your 5th and 6th spot. So I think that inherently just brings us to the very bottom of our tier list.
Yeah, that's a good point too. We are trying to more or less order these sort of how from left to right as well within the tiers, because we're going to double up on some more tiers in the future. So yeah, Survivors we do think is worse than Rampage. Despite it, I mean the best part about it is introducing Speed Attacker and Rickaby the Dismantler. That's
Right.
that and Surfer really holding it down.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to have some discourse here, I think the reason we voted Rampage over Survivors is because I'd much rather, if we're, I mean, even if we're not drafting, just in general, I think I'd much rather live in a world that has Emerald, Searing Wave, and Earth Stomp Giant than I would Twin Cannon, Rickabu the Dismantler, and whatever else was in that set.
Yeah,
Surfer, I guess.
totally fair.
Those are kind of the 3 competing with each other there, and Rampage just gave us a handful of other relevant niche cards, whereas Survivors didn't.
All right, moving right along. Sorry for that quick cut, everybody. We had some technical difficulties. Carl's power went out for a hot minute. We are moving right along to DM06 Stompatrons of Invincible Wrath. Take it
Yeah,
away.
no, yeah, no. Shout outs to saying these names. I think we forgot to do it for a few of these, but
Oh no.
um, yeah, Survivors of the Megapocalypse, Rampage of the Super Warriors. I know we went over Blinding Night, but yeah, Stompatrons of Invincible Wrath. Um, I think what I was mentioning before our little power surge there. Um, and again, I don't want to I don't want to speak for you here, but I think I would have ranked DMO6 much higher on this set list had you asked me off the cuff 6 months ago before we started getting into bracket tournament stuff. I think cards like Bomidia Steel Dragon, Crazed Valkyrie were cards that were just very alluring. You know, you talk about a set that just has a ton of super rare chase cards. This set has a bunch of them. Cards that were just super relevant for their time. I think this is when you and I were first starting to really get into the competitive scene for Duel Masters, or at least the one that existed back in early 2003. Um, and yeah, I just I or I guess this would have been 2005 for us. 2004 is when the set came out here in the US. So this would have been
Nope.
sometime in 2005 that this set
April
came out.
9, 2005. Yeah, April 9, 2005. Yep.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
the game came out in 2004. But
Yeah,
yeah,
you're right.
this tournament play for DMO6 for Stompatrons is where I think you and I really started to find our way into this game. I remember this set being very relevant to most of our strategies moving forward. This card that you're on right now, Energy Stream, was
Mm-hmm.
just so incredibly relevant to every strategy we played because we were out here trying to pilot 70 plus card decks, and Energy Stream just helped us see at least 8 cards deeper into it if we
I
play a
mean,
full grip of them. So,
in fairness, the card
yeah.
is still fantastic for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But this set gave us just a lot of relevant cards. Pyrofighter Magnus is still one of my favorite cards in the TCG. Cards like you just scrolled over, Thrash Crawler being super relevant. We got the relevant survivors that we mentioned at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the survivors thing there. It gave us survivor cards that actually made the deck. I say this is the deck, the survivor strategies, very relevant. Cards like Coco Lupia trying to make dragons relevant. Everybody's favorite boy, Rickaboo Screwdriver.
Yeah.
Because again, those 70 card control decks were just running a slew of blockers.
Phantom Flame, we
Um,
played in almost everything. Yeah, Pyrofighter,
yeah,
Comet Missile, Rickaboo, Screwdriver. That really formed like 12 out of 40 cards by itself of the rush decks we were playing at the time. So I can
yeah.
see
This
why,
deck.
looking back, you initially thought you'd rate it like really high.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like we got speed attackers and survivors with Rickaboo the Dismantler, and then we got another 3 drop Pyrofighter, and now look at every rush deck that exists. It's usually running somewhere between 6 and 8 of the Rickaboo Dismantler and Pyrofighter, for 3 to 4 of each.
Hey,
So,
it's our friend Garabon. He's in the set too.
shout outs to our boy. Yep, that's what makes this set super high ranking, I bet, in his eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this set just gave us a lot of what I would consider meta defining cards for its time. Cards that I think stood the test of time, at least through the life of the TCG, all the way through 2006. So
Yeah. I mean, I think this set more than others has a lot of cards that we overrated. Things that just sort of saw a little bit less play as we started learning more about the current meta. Which is a relevant point is how we're really rating these. Every deck has its sort of just garbage cards like Razor Pine Tree. But cards
cards
like
great in draft.
Bolmedius is it is pretty big in draft, yeah. But yeah, some cards like Craze and Bolmedius and Rickaboo Screwdriver have fallen off a little bit, but it's still, it's got the Thrash, the Stream, the Forbos, so you can tell I'm a control player, the Pyrofighter for the aggro strats. Overall, a pretty good set, I would have to
Yeah,
say. Not insane like
absolutely.
we might have thought looking back, but it's good. And it's big too. Big sets are
Yeah,
fun. More
yeah.
room.
Introduced a ton of bait for those strategies that still required them, since we were only 6 sets deep. But yeah, just again, just a very good set. And I think it kind of falls in line with how we ranked Shadow Clash earlier, where it's the perfect set. It's what you want a Duel Master set to be, you know, not overbearing with so many cards that you want to, that you're chasing after, but a handful of good ones, a lot of relevant cards in all of the different civilizations that make decks viable. See interchangeable play. It's everything that the B tier is defined by.
Yep. Solid. All right, moving along. DMO7. Me remembering which one is DMO7. All right.
Oh my god, Thunder Charge of
Ultra Destruction.
Ultra Destruction. I was about to say Super Destruction. I knew it wasn't Super.
It's
So
Ultra.
this is another set. So again, 6 month ago, me would have probably said this set belongs in D tier. Today, me sees that a lot of relevant cards came out of this set that I think make it a very worthwhile set. Once again, you get a lot of just really underwhelming supers and varies. I don't think there's
Yeah,
a
my
single
God.
good one in the bunch.
Yeah, these are
uh,
all like, I mean, it doesn't really matter too much, like for us, where the good
yeah.
cards are from. In fact, we'd probably prefer they not be hard to get, but like it does in a way, like it kind of diminishes the shine. It dulls the shine of a set when
Well,
literally the shiny cards are bad.
and again, it's hard to say what what killed Duel Masters in the U.S. But this wasn't helping. You
Yeah, I
know,
mean, I to your point though, I don't think it was the fact that like sweats weren't buying up packs of Thunder Charge of Alter Destruction because Siri Glory Elemental wouldn't win them a 15-person local tournament, but it is rough.
we're not going to talk about what you just called a lot of people, but that's
The
fine.
sweats, I identify as a sweat. Okay, I'll take a game that has no business being competitive and spend 500 hours literally sweating right here in this chair playing it. I've done it before. I'll do it again. I
We're
sweat a
doing it
lot.
right now.
I have antiperspirant deodorant for a reason. Okay, I'm a sweat.
Absolutely love it. But yeah, the relevant cards in Thunder Charge. Um, this set gave us Cryptic Totem, gave us Apocalypse Vice, cards that I think for the most part will always see play and their respective archetypes that run their colors. Cryptic Totem is just, if not the best finisher that this game ever produced. It's if you're looking for finishers and you're playing nature, Cryptic's usually going to find a way into the deck. Um, Cards like Pook Balloon,
Yeah,
was another
which I'm
relevant
pretty sure
rush
we
card.
pronounced wrong all the time. It's like pollen, right? It's just pollen.
Pook
Kook pollen,
Pollen,
I think,
Pook
right? Am
Pollen,
I crazy?
sure. Pook
Again,
Balloon, you
I'm
can't
yeah.
attack him.
I I thought this gave us Charger, but was Volcano Charger not in
Yes.
here?
No, this gave us Chargers, but a lot of the not relevant.
Okay.
We got the one that you scrolled over in light was probably the most relevant out of the bunch. Lightning Charger. It lets you tap a
Yikes.
creature and charge it. Yeah.
That is
But I
rough.
mean, yeah. You look at some of the other cards in this set. Kaiser Basaku, which we saw in the Jungles matchup in the play-in tournament for season 2. I think this card is gonna see more play here on the channel as we continue to go along. Just a really strong card for 5 mana. Uh,
The
what are
problem I
some of
have
the
with
other?
this set is that like there aren't a lot of cards that are like defining for sure, but like it's also weak on the supporting cards front. Like it
Yeah.
really does seem like it's just Craze and Apocalypse Vice. Like we're not even really getting good Evo bait here.
Cryptic and Apocalypse
What
Vice.
did I
Yeah, for
say?
sure.
Did I say Craze?
Base.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Cryptic. My
So I
bad.
mean, you got a few cool ones. Cards that I would consider relevant are like Splash Zebrafish, uh, and then Propeller Mutant.
Yeah,
Cards
it's
that
fine.
see niche play in some of their respective deck types. But yeah, again, an underwhelming set, but a set that I think again, go back 6 months ago, I would have said this is probably the worst set out of all 12. Whereas today, I think it belongs very respectively somewhere in the middle of C tier.
Yeah, so C tier is where it's going. For me, I really do think the average card quality is really just among the worst, and thank the devs that Apocalypse and Cryptic are in there, because otherwise it would almost certainly be a D tier set for me at least. But I
Yeah,
do think those
absolutely.
cards carry, like if there are cards that can carry a lot of sets on their back, it's those two. They're just really strong. Yeah. Moving along, we're moving along. We've got our first C tier deck.
We
We've propagated all of the tiers. And now we're
Yeah,
moving
well,
on to DM08. I can't find the image. Epic Dragons of Hyper Chaos.
Hyper chaos.
What are we working with, Carl? Are these dragons epic? Are we in hyper chaotic land?
The dragons are relatively epic, but I think the thing that makes this set incredibly relevant is all of the amazing chargers that we got. Very similar to kind of how Survivors did it with Survivors of the Megapocalypse into Stompatrons, where we got all of our relevant survivors in Stompatrons. This set gave us all of our relevant chargers the set after it introduced them. Um, Eureka Charger, Volcano Charger, Corpse Charger. Um, just again, very good cards that still see play today. Some usually recommend playing them over some of their contemporaries, which we'll get to here a little later. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I've really
just
gotten a newfound respect for chargers as we've played the current meta. Mana
yeah,
ramp is good.
absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah,
Cranium Clamp's another good card,
yeah,
turns
yeah.
out.
Shout outs. Yeah, Cranium Clamp I think was so incredibly meta defining when it came out. It was, I mean, and you can speak to it just like I can. I hated playing across from decks that saw this on turn 4 consistently, and
And I was
especially
the
when
guy playing 4 copies of them every week at
yeah,
locals.
yeah. So I mean, it's
Talking
just
about things
nothing.
that killed DM, it was me and my Cranium Clamps.
Nothing feels worse, man. I tell you. But just otherwise, just a lot of really cool cards. This introduced the Turbo Rush mechanic, which was semi-relevant for a time. I think you and I are probably going to try some stuff with some of these Turbo Rush cards in the future. We got probably one of the best super rares, or Waterfire Nature Tempo in Magma Dragon Jigalzor. It is a very
Oh,
rare,
very
sorry,
rares. Yeah, yeah.
very rare.
I was
Yeah.
like, where is it?
Um, Yeah, no, just an amazing card, and again, a card that I think we really slept on in the early days. This card is strong, and I think it comes down to turn faster than Twin Cannon, which I think is why we continue was just why we put Stomp or Survivors so low on the set list. I'm gonna sneeze. I'm gonna mute myself here in a minute, so you have to take the mic.
Go for it.
But there, yeah, just a ton of relevant cards that saw other strategies start to come to life. We got cards like Soul Gala.
Hmm.
Uh, who else are we looking at? I'm looking at it with you as we go.
Oh, I mean,
Dimension Splitter for the dragon strategies.
yeah.
Tyrant Worm for the for the.
Quixotic. I'm surprised you did mention Quixotic. It really forms
Oh,
the
there he is.
foundation of a lot of
Yeah,
nature, including green aggressive mid-range decks, tempo decks, aggro decks, rush decks,
yeah,
whatever you want to call them, whatever specific brand of breaking shields you're doing. For me,
it
this
is.
set also suffers from underwhelming foil syndrome, but not nearly as bad as some of the other ones. And at least some of the foils are like encouraging you to build around them. Like they might not be super competitive, but at least they're interesting. And I appreciate that. I give it points for that. Are they great?
Well,
No. Do I
yeah,
care? No.
right. And I can speak to the collector side of that. The super rare dragons there, Bala Gale and what is it, Abzadolva. Those cards are very collector worthy. The three of these cards are some of the more expensive cards in this game still today, especially if you can find them in good condition. But like you mentioned, I think on the underwhelming side of that is that these cards are not very playable, and even the very rares suffer outside of Chigalzor.
Yeah. But it does have a couple cool, introduce the good chargers, very relevant stuff. Cards like Giga Claws are kind of neat. For me, standouts are Quixotic and Cranium Clamp if we're talking about highly competitive cards. Quixotic is a 4 of in so many decks that really need a good 2. It really just fills that role for so many decks in the current meta. And Cranium Clamp, I mean, let's be real, it's a top 5 card for sure. Like it's
Yeah,
one of the most meta defining cards of all time. It's the only card we're playing with that's limited to 1 in the current finish format that we're using.
yeah,
But I mean, it's just like mind-bogglingly good, I think, compared to
yeah,
a lot of other cards in the game. And those two
absolutely.
cards carry this for me to like
Yeah,
going from like a mess set with some dragons in it to actually being kind of okay, I think. And
yeah,
that is where
and that's
we landed it.
yeah, absolutely. I think this set belongs squarely in B tier. It's a very good set. Like you said, those two cards carry the weight of the set, but Jigalzor, the rest of the Chargers, cards like Soul Gala, there's just a lot of relevant cards in here that are worth picking this setup for. Not to mention the heavy hitters there, Quixotic and Clamp.
Yep. Moving on. We are on DM09 now on this tier list. Fatal
Yeah,
Brood of Infinite Ruin. Yeah,
it's a
there
fun
he
set.
is.
It's a fun set. I remember this being somewhere in the lull of how we were growing up with the set. I remember this not being an incredibly relevant set when we were growing up. And looking back at it now, I think it kind of still falls into that niche a little bit. This is one of those sets that never really, I don't know what the word is, whelmed anybody. Didn't overwhelm anybody, didn't underwhelm anybody, it just
Yeah,
didn't really whelm.
just
But
exactly whelm level.
right. But I mean, we got some relevant cards here. Petrova being really cool. I think that's the only interesting hollow. Glenna Vale and Vrima have some interesting
That's the
synergies with
problem.
some of the other decks.
Because they're
Yeah.
all, well, Glenna's like an okay tech against like Alzonius for Hydra Hurricane, but like a lot of these cards are actually interesting. They're just not good. Like they have like compelling card text, and like this starts at 0 power. This thing is huge. Like, wow, these cards are interesting. Valak Vaj, like I've seen some people try to build decks around it. I remember Spencer building
Yeah.
a really not good version of this back in the day. Oh
Bombazar
man.
before Bombazar, man. It might stay tuned for season 3.
Yeah, but yeah, Petrova for sure is the playable one of the foils, as you
Yeah,
said.
Petrova's great and carries the whole weight of this set. You still get some neat things. Slash Charger was a really cool addition that this set brought to us. A
Ace
handful
Vapor.
of yeah, Ice Vapor was neat control cards. We got a lot of cool dark cards out of this set. Actually, I think Grixo is a card that I thought was really interesting. Zombie Carnival's just good. Bat Doctor is a cute card that sees some text and some other mid range decks. Um, but I think outside of Darkness and Petrova, I think that's pretty much the weight of this set. Um, Cavern Raiders cute, kind of falls in that same category as Bat Doctor. Blizzard of Spears is incredible,
Yeah,
but that's about all she wrote.
yeah. Some neat support cards overall. Not a lot for Fatal Brood here that I would consider super competitive, and for that reason, Fatal Brood's going in the low end of C tier under Thunder Charge for now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
It
hey, again,
falls
if you
low.
disagree with us, let us know in the comments.
Yeah. Like I said, we're telling you we're telling you what's right. You tell us why you think we're wrong.
Yeah, it's okay to be wrong sometimes in the comments. We're kidding. We're kidding. Just in case sarcasm
Yeah,
doesn't get picked up.
it's
Uh,
fine.
all right.
Inspired debate.
We're getting down
Just
to
don't
the
fight.
yeah, no
You can
fighting.
fight. Yeah, don't fight. No fighting.
Last
No fists.
three. We're in the double digits now of sets.
Oh man,
DM. That's the
that's
wrong.
looks like Shadow Clash
Jeez, it
to
is. I
me.
saw an S and I got really excited. Um.
Shockwaves of the Shattered Rainbow.
Oh, that's why. Because I got a weird image because it looks like this on the wiki. I just have like
Yeah.
yeah, low res box. DM10. Yeah, shockwaves. Shockwaves.
What
Another. What a set.
a, what an awful set. This really just drove DM into the ground, man.
That's it.
Yeah,
We've
that's
had enough out
that's
of you.
yeah. That's why
Yep.
you can't let me on content anymore. This is
Yep.
incredible, guys.
Yep.
You want to talk about sets that it should have just reinvigorated Duel Masters if it wasn't already on its way out here in the States. This set was the one to do it. You look across the board here. So from the supers to the varies to just all of the other colors that this set introduced, multi civs, there's relevant cards at literally every turn. I think as we played through season 1, I think we did an excellent job of kind of showcasing a lot of what DM10 brought to the table. It's hard not to just name every single card in this set and give it some form of kudos. I think at some point or another, someone on IDC or us here on the channel have tried to jam the majority of these cards into a deck somehow and make them relevant because the majority of them are. CVH stopped on the big bruiser there, Bombazar, the only card ever to see a ban in the TCG. No, it never got banned in TCG. Actually, nothing got banned here because the
Oh, you're right.
game
You're right.
died.
You're right.
But
Yeah, we're thinking
and
Bottle of Wishes.
IDC and all of the competitive metas that existed outside of the set's life or DM's lifespan in the TCG, everybody bans Bombazar. The card's just too good.
It is ironic that you said it could have reinvigorated Duel Masters, because my theory is that like people who might be like, oh, multi-civs, that's cool, I might get it back into Duel Masters and doing some cool stuff. You go to a local or a tournament and you lose to this and you just you're like, no, just kidding. That was the least fun game of anything that I've ever played in my life. What do you mean I don't get another turn? Ugh.
Right, but
Yeah.
just I mean, look at the supers. Like so many cool cards. I mean, just to go down the list, I don't know that there's a bad one in the bunch. Maybe the nature ones. Hurricane Crawl is cute, man. Don't you stop now.
Okay. Cute. Cute. We'll give it cute.
But what I'm saying is like if 6 to 7 are relevant out of the 10, and same with the very rares, like I think you're doing something right.
Yeah, I just think this. I mean, we got, everything from like the less impressive cards, like Tulk, the smallest creature in the game. Besides that, maybe that one armor dragon that starts at 0. But base power. We're talking actual power.
Right.
It has like good reprints. Another Spiral Gate. There we go. Yeah, some of the cards are maybe only good in draft, but like, damn, this this set did so much for the game. Not even for anything that I'm like quickly scrolling over now, but because of the multicolored cards. This completely changed the meta. It made deck building more interesting. It made gameplay and mana decisions more interesting. And beyond that, a lot of the cards are just real strong. Like Bombazar obviously is the strongest in the set because it's the strongest that was ever printed. But Tajamal, Melnia, I mean, Gallic, Windax, huge cards.
Anta,
Sky Sword, Sandfist, Gauntlet. I skipped Gauntlet. Yeah, Gauntlet's insane.
skip or
Like
whatever.
best two drop, best aggressive two drop they ever printed. Quixotic
But that's
that
what
we
I'm
just
saying.
discovered move
Like
aside.
that's what makes the set so good is that
And
Christian can
swap.
just scroll over Ganta because he's getting lost in the sauce with the rest of them.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm just excited about the
it's
5
just
drops over here.
right. And then you get cards like Soul Swap, Transmogrify, Rapid Reincarnation, just like really interesting cards that allow just such creative deck building. And even still today, CVH and I are still going back and forth on how to make, some of the decks with those cards relevant so that we can do fun stuff and, make fun content. Like the set just did so much for the game.
Soul Swap
And
is insane. Soul Swap
so,
is Soul Swap is the only card that I think you could argue with me that is the best card in the game that's not Bombazar. Because like obviously Bombazar is like the best finisher, but like Soul Swap, just for the sheer amount of decks that want to play for, it opens up so much. The Fortress Shell decks, the Tempo decks, like literally almost every deck with nature besides hardcore aggro. Like Soul Swap is just so
the
versatile,
most
so good.
right. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It is the most versatile card in the game, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. And if you don't agree, please comment down below. Let us know what you think's better than Soul Swap, because I think that is a very, very, very short list.
Yeah, it's Swap and Bombazar in the top 2 for me. Nothing else is. It's not even close. Like Clamp is a distant third if it's third, but Clamp is still really good. But still, Swap just this card is on another level for what it did to everything. And with Bombazar, obviously,
Very
it
cool.
created the least interactive deck of all time. But yeah,
But
but we're not going to talk about that. The cards in this set are overall like not only strong but just cool. This set is cool. The set is cool
yeah,
and good, and bonus points, it's big. So there's a lot of cool and a lot of good to go around. Literally, I just enjoy everything about the set. Even the bad cards are fun. I want to
like
draft this. I'm looking at this and I want to draft it.
well, that's yeah, and that's the other side too. You just talk about the aesthetic of a set. Like this set literally has it all. Like as CVH scrolls through all of these cards, they're bright, they're interesting, they're fun. There's a ton of interesting text that's not too overwhelming. Like all of these cards are just neat. Like everything does something cool. Even some, I mean, there's still cards today that I'll scroll through the binder and scroll through this wiki and just find cards. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a card. Like you don't even think about it. Like the set just has so much to offer. Like Christian's reading Hurlosaur here. He probably hasn't
Yeah.
read that card in a decade.
This one's
It's
rough.
not as it's not as great as you want it to be, but it's neat.
Is that just worse Magmar X? No, it's not. But basically it is. Yeah, Hurlsaur
Yeah.
sucks. Um Yeah. No, this set is awesome.
Yeah.
this is another, I think, contender for the S tier.
Yeah, I think when we were going back and forth on this and where it belonged in the grand scheme of Duel Master sets, this one I think belongs at the very top of S tier.
Yeah.
I think everything is a distant second to this deck. Base set, while cool and gave us a lot of staples that we still use today, Shockwaves just opened up this game in a way that I think it desperately needed. And I think it's because of Shockwaves that this game is still relevant today. I think without this set, I don't know that people would still be playing Duel Masters.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like the core classics of Terrapit, Holy Awe, Bronze Arm, Spiral Gate versus, I mean, it's hard. I don't know. There's not a lot of cards that are like Terrapit and Bronze Arm, but just for sheer interest of the bulk of the set, Shockwaves wins for me. And obviously Soul Swap. Both of those reasons.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Both obviously great. The game wouldn't exist in its current form without either of them, but yep, Shockwaves currently at the top of S tier, and we've got 2 more to go. We are moving on to DM11, Blastosplosion of Gigantic Rage.
It's funny. Like, I don't know if you're having what I feel feels like deja vu, but like I always think that these adjectives that they're using to describe whatever the keyword is on these, like rage and chaos and all that, like I just feel like they keep using the same word, but they haven't yet, which is impressive.
Yeah. Gigantic Rage. It's an interesting adjective to choose for sure. But how do we feel about the set? Let's take
Great
a
set.
look. Great set. Miraculous spells. This set does not suffer from underwhelming foil syndrome. This set has great foils.
Yeah.
This is maybe like the best spread of any set for real.
Yeah, all 5 of these supers are relevant to some degree, with the exception
not that one
of Gluchadras. Wow. Wave Strikers was neat. The set introduced Wave Strikers. Gluchadras just wasn't quite up to snuff here.
Yeah,
but we got a lot of really interesting very rares too. Miraculous Truce, I think, being one of the most underwhelming of the bunch of all of the spells.
Again, super weird that they wouldn't just make the 5 miraculous cards the 5 super rare. I don't know. It's like borderline OCD that I'm complaining about that, but like,
yeah,
Cluadras. They wanted to mix it up. They wanted to give us like gladiators, because we're gladiators. Like, they were finally focusing on it, I guess. And Cluadras was part of the new thing. They had to make one of them super rare.
Yeah.
Should have made Sapient Tark super rare and made the deck really hard to play for everyone.
But I think the rest of the set, just in general, is great. Survivors or not Survivors, excuse me, Wave Strikers as an engine is incredibly relevant. Like I said, we've tried to feature it here in season 1 and season 2, much to the dismay. Neither one of the decks could really make it out of their round 1 match, but still very fun, very interesting. We got some really cool staples that I think were highly slept on, at least here in the early days on the channel. Juliana, Belix being 2 of the main ones, Lucky Ball even. And as we continue down the line, cards that weren't really slept on, Morbid Medicine, we saw it in a lot of our control decks early on. It's just a great card in general. Spinning Terror is cute.
Yeah.
But, the rest of this, we got some neat fire cards, nothing too overwhelming. And then nature gave us a lot of really neat creatures as well that I think started to stand the test of time, namely Hardy Cap and Polygon. Some of the
Strikers, maybe?
Some of the Wave Strikers, yeah.
Even the multicolored non-foils are cool. We've played both Reap and Sow and Slash and Burn now in different decks in the bracket, so I think they're both pretty competitive cards in the right shell. There's even some control decks that can use this. Fists of Forever, Bazagaziel's Finisher. It's kind of neat. I intend to play Hide and Seek eventually in something.
I really hope somebody at Wizards got fired for making Rise and Shine, though. Because Submarine Project does that for 1 less mana and lets you pick just any card you want. And it's only 1 civ. Yeah,
what set was Submarine Project from?
The
only thing I could see is like they're like, oh, we're gonna rotate it out eventually, and then you'll have a worse version because Submarine Project is just too good to leave in the meta. as it sees zero play.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. Interesting
yeah,
choice.
yeah.
But looking
Super
like
poor decision.
it's easy to get caught up in the hype of the miraculous spells
Yeah,
and also get overwhelmed by the sheer amount of like wave strikers. But if you look through the cracks again at the less rare cards like Juliana and Belix, that is like the backbone of a lot of light using control decks. Lucky Ball and Morbid Medicine are other standouts for me. Hardy Cap'n kind of gives the Fire Nature Rush deck life. I mean, Ganta helped like last set for sure, but between the two, like all of a sudden, with these two expansions, Fire Nature Rush skyrocketed to the top in a way that it just wouldn't have without Ganta and Hardy Captain. They both need to exist, in my opinion, for it to be definitively the best Rush deck, and
yeah,
that's exactly what happened.
absolutely.
So, I
Yep,
mean, that
Emergency
literally is a
Typhoon
huge
and
meta
a handful of
impact.
others. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this set's cool. And again, I think we as a channel slept on these miraculous spells a lot, especially in the early days of creating content. And just looking at it now, these cards are cool, they're relevant, and I think this set very much belongs in A tier. Um, just a lot of cool things. It's hard to not rank this set high when so much of this set is relevant to deck building in today's meta.
Yep. And we put it even above Evo. You know, I mean, Evo's great, gave us quite a few solid cards and staples, but Blast still, like, when you really think about it, like, it has kind of everything from the supers down to the commons. Like, they're all just, it's really solid. Skyrocketing Fire Nature Rush, giving miraculous spells, like creating whole archetypes, miraculous snares, just massively impactful.
Yeah,
Great
yeah.
set.
And
Love
I
it.
and I know what you're thinking, right? You know, it's like Evo Crushinator just gave us all these cool Evos. Like if you're one for oneing cards here, Blast Explosion beats Evo every day of the week. Like Belix and Juliana are even enough to probably put this in a high B tier. And then you add all of the miraculous spells and the relevant wave strikers and cards like Lucky Ball, Emergency Typhoon, Morbid, like
Yep. We're finally closing it out.
yeah.
DM12. You want to give us the name of DM12?
Take
Take
us
us on
home.
home.
This is another just worse one for me because I always get the two weird adjectives mixed up. But
Yeah,
it's
you messed it up
Thrash
at the
of the.
beginning.
I sure did. It's Thrash of the hybrid mega creatures. I always want to say mega hybrid creatures because that just sounds right, right? Like, but no, it's hybrid mega creatures because Duel Masters just wanted to spite me one last time before it walked out the door.
This could be a you problem.
It's very much a me problem.
Yeah, I mean it's just funny. I mean, like looking back, like DMO1 base set. Like I don't know if they realized they wanted to name funny things. I guess having a base set's on Thrash. December 1st, 2006. I don't remember if this came out after the game was announced to not be produced
You got to move
anymore.
screens so that people can see what we're talking about.
They do. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, no. So Duel Masters had announced that it was no longer in production when it had released this set. This was very similar to how Kaijudo went out years and years later, but um, they had already produced this set prior to saying that the game was over. I remember getting boxes of this for Christmas because they were so inexpensive at Comic Chess because the game was dead.
That tracks.
Yeah.
That does
So,
track.
and then yeah, sometime in January, February, Duel Masters just stopped production for organized play altogether, and Duel Masters was no more.
Yeah, I mean, this is another expansion that has really cool foils, but as far as playability, um, you got Killstein for the Wave Striker decks as maybe like a one or two of, and then you have Terra Dragon Arcadella Serena, which is actually great. This card is actually just really solid in if we're talking about current metas. You know, we even play it in our one clamp meta, but in the actual IDC or in the Finnish metas when they don't have clamp limited to one, this card is very high impact. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that was everybody's answer to Clamp. That's and especially even in the OCG as the game continued, like that's why they didn't limit Clamp, and even why in the Finnish meta they don't now anymore because that card just kind of evens it out.
this is weird. This is not sorted by civilization.
Right. Yes. So this is the first set that stopped doing it by civilization and started doing it by rarity.
The
Um,
first and the
which is
last.
yeah. Yeah, well, DM13, but we'll get to that at a at a later date.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
bothering me. I didn't actually realize that, and that
yeah,
is
yeah,
making it hard to find what I want because I don't remember the rarity of any of these cards. I was like, why is
right.
Pincer
So
Scarab a water card? Huh.
no, it's not. So we got a lot of cool rares: Olorus, Pinsir Scarum, Mecha Dragon's Breath. They're really really cool. Some of the relevant Darkness Wave Strikers, and then all of the Dual Civ evolutions that weren't Vortex evolutions. So Phantomac, Hydrus, those were all rares.
God, where
Some
are
of the
they?
uncommons at the very bottom of the rare list there starts with Agira, and then Hydrus, Phantomac, Niminex, and Amadai.
Yeah, I like Hydrus and Phantomac, and they are channel favorites. In the actual competitive meta, you really don't see much of either, but I think they're at least decent, cool cards, that are
Yeah,
fun to
for sure.
play. Eularis is high impact. That it gave the Alcadius deck it by far its best Evo bait for sure. Um, Besides that, yeah, I gotta say it. A lot of the sets a little mid for me.
Yeah, a lot of the so we got uncommon variants, 3 for 4,000, and all of the different color combinations. This really just opened the door for a lot of Evo bait to make a lot of those vortex evolutions and uh, mini vortex evolutions. The dual civ Evos relevant. We got cards like Farzi, some again more relevant wave strikers like Goliath. We got Windmill Mutant. Cards like that. Just a lot of good support cards, but nothing too over the top. Um, the
Beaver
clone
nuts.
spells, which are neat. We tried to feature Clone Nightmare early on in season one. Never really came to fruition.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Valkyr, which is the blocker that ruined Wave Striker's day in season one. So the set gave us a lot of cool stuff, but I think what this set did, at least for us here on the channel, was open the door to a lot of creative deck building.
Hmm.
Like CVH mentioned, Hydras and Phantomac have become channel favorites. It was just fun to try to find ways to make those decks and those cards in general relevant. We had some fun with Pegasus back in the day. And who knows, we might try some of the Vortex evolutions out in the future, but
Yeah.
probably not.
Giga Balls, it's like Paradragon for sure. Mecha Dragon's Breath and Uloris are both really solid. Pinsir Scarab, we slept on, and it's always cool to see those cards that we thought might not be great, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh, people are actually playing this, and hopefully we can feature this more in season 3 because there's a few shells that we want to experiment with it. Besides that, I mean, yeah, Giga Balls is cool. And yeah, I'd say like maybe 10 or 12 cards in the set that are actually like competitively compelling, but the ones that are really are. And it did some cool things, gave us some cool Evo lines to explore. And it's just a shame that we weren't really able to, see how these kind of decks would evolve in the future because this was the last expansion. And Vortex Evos is a very cool concept. It just happened that these weren't quite good enough to make it into the competitive scene, and it would have been cool to see where they took that moving forward. And those of you who play the
Yeah,
OCG know, but I don't know because I stopped at DM12. I can't
yeah,
read the cards.
yeah. We we all did, friend.
Yeah.
We all did. Poor
Yep.
Buckpoint. Rest in peace.
Yep.
So, where are we putting set 12, the final set in the TCG?
It seems kind of fitting thinking about it now, but we are ranking it C tier, right at the top of C
Yeah,
tier, which means it is 7 out of 12, so roughly in the middle. It's the one of
yeah,
the most, that and Epic Dragons are the middiest of mid, apparently according to
yeah,
our
for sure.
rankings.
Yeah, there were some sets here that I think sat on the cusp for us. Thrash is one of those that I think can kind of waver between B and C depending on where the meta's at any given point. Same with Shadow Clash and Evo, kind of falling to or rising to A, or Evo falling to B. But I think for the most part, I think a lot of these sets are where they belong in terms of rank.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear what you guys think.
I think the top two is definitely right, and I think the
Yeah,
bottom two is definitely right. I think we got
yeah,
those. But yeah, on a serious note, it would be cool to hear your opinions. We joked about this being definitive, but for me, a lot of this was relearning which cards were in which expansions, and it was fun to just go down the journey and pretend I
yeah.
was 11 to 13 years old again and be cracking packs of all these. Good times,
Yeah.
man. Good times.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. This game brings back a ton of nostalgia, and I think that's what the allure is, especially for me and you, and just anybody who's still playing this game. Obviously, it's a lot of people who played it or who are playing it now played it back then, and I think that's what brings people to it. You know, it's a very tight knit community, and I love it for that. But yeah, guys, let us know what you think of this rank in the comments down below. Leave a like. Um, and just in general, you know, let us know what you think. We had a lot of fun doing this. CVH and I spent a lot of time bowling this over, going back and forth to try to bring you the best tier list we could, and I think we nailed it.
Yeah.
Without
Hopefully you
further
enjoyed.
ado, guys. Yeah, yeah. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for sticking around for those of you who watched the whole thing, and until next time, see you around. Peach.
Each.